Welcome to the Goalie Mindset Podcast. My name is Pete Fry, the Goalie Mindset Guy, and my purpose is to help goalies have a dominating goalie career. Pete Fry, the Goalie Mindset Guy, here with the Goalie Mindset Podcast. Today we have a phenomenal guest. I'm so excited to have him on. Is the great Tom Lawson. Tom played in the KHL. He played in Liga. He was signed with the Colorado Avalanche and has a phenomenal journey. And the title of today is Betting on Yourself. And Tom is a goaltender that surely bet on himself. Here we go. Let's get started. The Goalie Mindset Podcast. Tom, great to have you on, my friend.
Thanks so much for having me, Pete.
You got it. So let's dive right into it. Let's go back to when you played minor hockey. When did you start playing as a goalie, and why did you start playing?
First of all, thanks for having me on. I actually debated. I talked to a couple of guys. I debated on showing up in this interview with a Red Sox shirt on, a skin bald cap, and the black beard, and just go straight faced and just start talking to Pete. Just start talking to Pete.
I think that would have been awesome. You could have taken me through a visualization.
I'll do that the next one. I'll go to a Halloween store and find all the gear and fire it up. But so I played hockey in Whitby. Grew up playing in Whitby. My brother was a forward a year older than me. And I was actually hacking it up, and, he was scoring all the goals, and he was such a good player. And I was a defenseman because I didn't want to get in there and get the puck. When you're a little kid, any kid that's dog on bone is a forward. It's just automatic. You know what I mean? So my brother Jeremy kind of had a lot of the accolades growing up, and I would go in net for him in the driveway to work on his game. So my dad would be out there and he'd be like, I'll show you how to score, Jeremy, to my brother. And he's like, Tom, throw the gear on. And so I'd be like, all right, I'm putting the gear on. And so for 2 or 3 years there, I was going goalie equipment, summer, training in the driveway while my brother was, on his way type of a thing, and really doing well. He was leading leagues in scoring, and I'm the goalie. And to the point where, the Cascade system kind of, now I'm playing with a year older, the best player in the league. And I'm in net all summer long. And then I go out and play defense, and I'm average at best. And so my dad was just all of a sudden like, hey, do you want to play net? I'm like, let's go. Let's do it. Can I? I didn't even know it was an option. You know what I mean?
Wow. So you went in goal. You went in goal so your brother had something to shoot at, basically.
100%.
Start off with. Yeah,
for sure. And I was his biggest fan. I loved watching him play. And everybody knew Jared was getting a lot of attention because he was such a good player and leading the league and that sort of thing. So our days off was like, how do we get Jared there? You know what I mean? Like, how do we get him better? Because he's getting so much hype. And so I would put the gear on, and he would just fire pucks at me, balls, anything that looked like a ball in the garage. You'd line it all up and you start wailing away. And I had the license plate attached to the player glove, right? In that with the baseball glove, and the baseball glove and the fake cardboard cheater, and just get after it. And so that's how I started. I played in Whitby right up to my minor midget year. I had some success, played AAA. I actually went from house league straight to AAA. 1 year of goaltender as a house league goalie because politics, I guess you could say, meaning like, okay, this guy never played goalie last year. No one's taken him.
How old were you when your first year when you played house league?
Yeah, as a goaltender, I believe I was 10.
10 years old. 10. Okay.
10 years old, played. And so went to the tryouts, got snipped from everything. And then I played house league, and, with my brother working on me all the time, and the 2-3 hour, basically played till the streetlights come on in net. The next year I played AAA. And so I played AAA, all the way up until minor midget. And back then, minor midget and midget were combined. Now there's minor midget, and then there's 2 years of midget. which they call U18. So minor midget and major midget combined. And I came into the tryouts and I had an injury from a four-wheeler accident, and I wasn't going to be able to start the season for about 2 months in. So they didn't hold a spot for me. And I don't know if it kind of is a pattern throughout my career where I don't know whether it's pride or it's ego or who knows what it is. I don't know, but somewhere along the lines, as I'll go through the story here, it kind of served me right. But I didn't want to play AA. So my dad's like, hey, you didn't make the team. You're going to go play AA. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it. And I'm not saying this is something that kids should do. It's to be honest, it's the exact opposite advice that I would give.
How old were you when you said you're not playing AA?
That was minor midget. So I was 16.
Okay. So 15, 16. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So
when you said you're not
that
playing,
year I never played. Yeah. So I didn't even play
didn't
hockey
play at all.
Year.
Wow.
No, I didn't play. Just went to high school, didn't play. All the Oshawa Generals went to our school in Whitby there at Henry Street High School. That's where they put all their Oshawa General players from the OHL team. And so I didn't play hockey. And then the following year, somebody was like, hey, the high school team's going to make a hockey team. They're like, do you want to play in net? And I'm like, sure. They're like, you get Fridays off. I was like, sweet. Right. There's these Friday buyout games where you give $2 and you get to go to the local rink and watch the team play. So I'm like, sounds good. So I went and played there. And my brother was on the team too. And a bunch of AAA kids had kind of fallen off, or the kids that didn't make the team. And so we played that year. We won the whole thing. We went 11-0, and it was really good. I actually played 2 years of high school hockey, and there was only 11 game season. It wasn't like it was prep or it was like a big St. Andrews College type of a scenario. It was just simple high school hockey. We went all the way. I went undefeated for 2 years. And granted, we did have a good team, but there was a couple of good teams as well, and we were always able to edge them out. And then I got noticed by a junior A team when I was 19 years old. And that was back in the day.
From the high school hockey team.
That's right.
You got noticed. Yeah. So you weren't playing any other hockey, just high school?
No, nothing.
Wow.
Nothing.
And how rare was that?
Well, do you want to know what's really, really interesting in looking back at those years? So all I did through those years, some girl chirped me for being skinny. I remember walking in the hallway and she didn't know I could hear her. And she said something like, yeah, I like him, but he's really skinny. And something triggered in my mind. And funny things, how sometimes things happen, for you, not to you. And so for my entire high school, I was addicted to the gym. I went to the gym and I ate 4 meals a day.
Because of that comment. Because of that comment. Wow. Isn't that amazing how our belief systems are formed and the action we take, sometimes from things that are out of our control? It's almost luck. It's almost luck. And what if she had never said that?
Yeah, no kidding, right? So she said that, and I kind of liked her at the time. And I heard her say that, and it just burned. So I got this membership at God's Gym where they give you the code to go in. And I remember for my entire high school, I walked to the gym. I was that guy who walked slowly with a backpack straight from school. I went right to the gym, and I would come home at 8 o'clock at night.
Wow, and you'd be working out. It's almost
working out.
It's almost like you read that. You remember in the comic books, they'd have that cartoon. They'd show a guy on a beach. He gets sand kicked in his face, and then he would join the gym and work out and transform his body. Yeah,
and it was crazy. And for me, it was just so that my shirt wouldn't look like I still have the coat hanger in it. And so all I did was work out. And I kind of met a couple guys there that were doing the same thing. Just, kids from school that all they cared about was working out. And everybody I knew was playing hockey. And I was working out, and I'd walk there and I'd work out, then I'd walk home. And it's about 1.5 kilometers each way. And that was my life. I come home and eat all the food in the house and just work out. So my entire high school career, really, I didn't play hockey. I was kind of dabbling with some stuff. But what was interesting, and I always tell kids these days too that I work with, is that when you get your man body, you're a different human being. You know what I mean? So I remember playing in that last year of high school hockey. And at that time I was 6'3", 215 pounds, and all I do is lift. So just coming out and grabbing a puck and sending it up the ice, just the strength that's it required to make so many moves. And I don't know, we were talking about it, yourself and I, how Skinner can just beast mode a game. You know what I mean? And so I think that, just not getting off topic, but when you watch Skinner play, yeah, you know what? There's people that criticize him technically and stuff like that, but there's something about when he flips it into Sasquatch mode, like you can't beat this guy because he's so big, he's so strong, and he kind of uses his power and confidence and just like, wow, he just like bullies the game, you know? And I found that what was interesting is that all the working out that I did, you know, now I'm in grade OAC back then, which was the year after grade 12. And even 11 games of it, I could kind of beast mode a game. And there wasn't very much technique involved, that's for sure. But enough that if you had, you know, the ability to just be strong in there and just grind and be really stingy. I feel like strength training can add a lot of forgiveness to your game. And it also kind of, you know, you become very stingy as a skill. So my skill for the first half of my career was just very stingy. It wasn't necessarily pretty, but it was stingy.
But you were still playing, even at 18, you were still just playing high school.
Yeah, that's it. Like that's it.
So
at 18 years old.
So sometimes, and this is where I think it's important for goalies listening, because some goalies are out there listening are 18 years old, and they may not playing on a junior team yet, and they may be thinking that their goalie career is over.
Right.
It's not over if it is alive in your head. That 100%. Is the most important thing. Tell us about that. Tell us about how it was somehow alive in your head. Because if someone was looking from the outside saying, "Oh, this guy's just playing high school," whatever.
That's for sure. Absolutely. So what was interesting about that time is that my brother, once again, a year older, he was working at Discount Car Rental, and he had just bought himself a new car. And during that summer, the Markham Waxers Junior A team was like, "Hey, you know what? You know, we want you to play for this team next year." And a lot of my friends that had played had kind of either stopped playing or they're like deep in the OHL and that sort of thing. And I at the moment, I was just enjoying the game and working out and enjoying that little championship run we had in high school. And I remember my dad saying to me, "You should go play junior, Tom. You got to go play." And I'm like, "I want to work at Discount Car Rental." And he's like, "Tom, you're playing hockey." And I'm like, all right, let's do it.
Wow. So he changed that. That could have been a decision that might have, you would have been done, basically.
100%.
Okay.
100%. So he says, "You got to go play." And I'm like, "Okay, let's do it." So I go and play that year. I skate with them all summer, and we ended up playing the season. And within 15 games of the season, I had 3 scholarship offers.
And you were 19 at the time?
19 years old.
So as a 19-year-old, so your first year in junior A as a 19-year-old, your very first year. You think of it, like that is awesome. Like that is such a good, inspirational story for other goalies out there.
For sure. I always tell kids, I just finished talking to a goaltender that I work with now. He plays for York Simcoe Express, and his mom, and they're debating on going to university and packing in hockey and that sort of thing. And I said, "Do you realize though, that if you play junior till your last year," and I had one more year after that, but I was pretty close to it anyway. I said, "If you play junior till your last year, you realize you're playing with kids 2 to 3 years younger than you." I said, "Scouts and teams don't really care at that stage how old you are. They want to see what you're doing in the league." And so development never stops, and kids keep growing, and especially men, they just keep growing and maturing and growing and maturing. And give yourself a chance in that last year to be the oldest guy in the league.
Yes,
there's
yes.
different mentality.
And I love that, because if I look back at when I played, like I was 16 in the Western Hockey League, and we just saw that. You saw that
That's
video
crazy.
of Craig
So
Berube
young.
standing in front of me and me like chopping him,
Yeah.
which I don't
Yeah.
think goalies should do. But I
I didn't know you were that aggressive.
I was a 160-pound 17-year-old that year, and he was he was like a 220-pound 19-year-old. Right. So, and that's a big difference. That's a big difference. Yeah. And so if goalies can realize that, you know, your development when you're 16 and 17, yeah, it's good. You can improve a lot. Yet when you turn 18, when you turn 19, you're now a man, a young man.
That's right.
Basically.
That's right.
And there's a big, big difference. And I just think there's something out there where a lot of goalies give up on themselves. They give up on their goalie careers way too early. Whereas they got to look at it like you can develop more when you're 19 years old than when you're 16 because you're more fully grown out, so to speak.
Absolutely.
But a lot of times the vision is gone.
And so the vision can be gone, but I also contribute a lot of I'm not blaming situations because parents want to do the best they can for their kids.
Yeah.
But what I find interesting is that kids right in that age of, you know, they finished high school, and if their parents have means, meaning like they can send them to university, parents give their kids plan B. And I feel like that could be the worst thing that you can put into a kid's mind, because you're going to come across a kid one day who doesn't have a plan B. Same goalie, same height, same weight, same ability. This kid's got plan B, and this kid doesn't even know what plan B is. And this kid's going to win every time.
It's like two dogs. One dog just has, like they're fighting over a bone, but the other dog has another set of food behind him he can go to.
That's right.
Who's going to win?
100%.
The dog without the other food is going to win that fight, right?
Every time. You know, I actually heard a quote from a Navy SEAL, and he said, "Burn all your boats. Burn your boats."
Do you know where that comes from? You'll love it. You'll love it. Cortez, the great explorer Cortez. So Tom, here's what happened. So Cortez, back in the day, what he was doing, they were going to conquer an island, right?
Yeah.
And I think Cortez has been canceled now or something like that, but whatever, who cares? So they're going to conquer an island. And when they're going to conquer an island, he noticed that his men were looking a little nervous, I don't know if are we going to take this island or not? So they get on the island and he goes, "Men, look back at our ships. They're in flames." He set them on fire. He goes,
"We're done. Yeah.
We win or we perish." And they won.
Interesting. That's interesting, right? So that's exactly what it was. Like, I remember after high school, my parents went to work, and my brother was working, and my sister was at school, and I'm sitting around the house, and there was a real feeling of like, man, I'm on my own here when it comes to my life, my decisions. I don't have a plan B. And so, you know, like those junior kids that spend all morning taping their sticks, writing their number on it, right? Taking it off, redoing it, changing out, you know, different stick patterns because you have nothing to do really that day. And so that's where I kind of was in my career. And looking back, not having plan Bs was the best possible thing I could ever have had in every single thing that I've ever done in my life. And I think that parents think to themselves, okay, we're going to play minor hockey, and then he's going to school. You know, we're going to send him to a university. And if, you know, by the time you're 17 years old, if it's not there and we're not seeing it, then, hey, we're going to send you to school because it's time to move on with your life. And I think that's the most important time to really dig in, you know, because obviously it was in my situation here. So I went and played junior with the Markham Waxers. We had a really good season, and this is hilarious. So they contacted me. So Bowling Green, Northern Michigan, Western Michigan, and St. Lawrence. And I went to this all-star game, and that's where I kind of got a lot of hype there. And they were like, "We want you to come. Let's go. Can we see your transcript and can we see your grades? Let's do this." I'm like, "Yeah, no problem. Here you go." And they're like, "Yeah, these aren't good enough to get into any of these schools." So I actually went back to school after my OAC year and enrolled in English and maths for one semester and then English and maths for the other semester just to beef my marks up. And so I'm 2 years outside of high school and I'm back doing high school courses. And I remember going in between the portables at lunchtime and just stretching, throwing my leg up on a staircase and just stretching because I didn't even know anybody anymore. And I was there for that. And I wanted to get 100 in each class. And so really getting back at the education part of it and feeling like it was a bit of a second chance, you know what I mean? And all the Oshawa generals that I went to high school, they're all gone. And so I was kind of on my own in that way, but it was really good for me to go back and kind of get my stuff together when it comes to education. And I kind of wish, obviously, at that point that I had pushed a little harder while I was there. But so I ended up getting my marks where I needed them to be. And then I went to Bowling Green. So I go
That's
to
a
Bowling
good school
Green.
too. That's a good school to go to.
Yeah,
NCAA, Div
school.
1.
Unreal, right? So excited to go there. And it's only 5 hours from my house. And I went and saw the campus and did the whole thing. And I'm like, man, this is going to be so good. And they're bringing in another freshman goalie. So one assistant coach was in charge of picking a goalie. He picked me, Wayne Wilson. And then another assistant coach was in charge of picking another guy. And they picked, it was Brian Hills was the other assistant coach. And he grabbed Tyler Masters, who's a great guy, great goalie. So we're bringing in 2 freshmen on full scholarship. And my assistant coach told me, listen, it's up for grabs. Like, you guys are going to battle this out until we see who's the guy. And my guy gets a full-time head coach at Michigan Tech before I even get there. And so it kind of had something to do with the fact of the lack of opportunity early on in the season. But I remember even in that moment and not getting so, not falling in line with the normal backup goalie mentality. I remember telling my coach, I said, listen, I'm going to be late on game days. And he's like, well, what do you mean? You're backing up. I said, I'm going to be late on game days because my class ends at this one class on Fridays ends at 5:00 and I got to go work out. And he's like, well, you can't because you're going to have to back up and we need everyone here at the rink at 5:30. I said, well, I ain't playing and I'm going to be playing hockey somewhere beyond Bowling Green.
You had that mentality that,
so
hey,
if you're
not playing me, screw you, basically.
I'm working out. Yeah. And I said, it's too late after that. I need to go to bed after the game and be ready to go in case I play and blah, blah. So I told him, I said, look, I'm going to be showing up 15 minutes early, whether you like it or not. And I don't know if that's a little bit of the outdoor cat in me that my dad instilled in me growing up, but I said, I'm showing up 15 minutes before and I'm not trying to be disruptive. But if I'm not getting an opportunity here, I'm pushing it in the gym and I got a trainer waiting for me in the weight room and we're going. And he was fine with it, which I really appreciaed. So that was
I think the good part about that is that the way that you explained it to him, it showed him that you're still like you're getting better yourself no matter what. You're almost not waiting for them. If they're not going to play you,
right,
you're still going to the gym. You're going to get better. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Okay.
That's right.
I like that.
That's right. So that was really cool. And my coaches were pretty cool with that. And then halfway through the year, one of the players on my team was going to leave halfway through his career to go play pro. And I started getting interested in that idea. And my goalie partner was playing pretty good. So there wasn't a ton of opportunity for the coach to let me in there. I played a few games, played decent. But I told him about Christmas time, I said, I'd like to transfer schools. And back then you had to redshirt. Yeah. And I know now that it's all said and done, you never mention trade, don't mention transfer. They don't like that. That's not
they write you off if you do that.
They write you
off.
Yeah. As soon as you mention it once, it's not even, you can't even mention that and tie that up in a bow in a nice, neat way so that they don't get offended. As soon as you mention that, it's
crazy. It's the way that they have, and this is not just college. This is major, junior, junior A, junior B, junior C. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
That's right.
It's like the coaches or the GMs have this control mentality where they can tell you, hey, you're going to come here, you're going to get lots of playing time. Meanwhile, they got like 2 other guys they're bringing in.
That's right.
And yet if a player says, Well, and the players just being upfront, or the goalie says, I'm looking at this other opportunity over here. Yeah, never say that until
Game
that
over.
other opportunity is signed, sealed, and delivered.
Agreed.
Right. So you got to do that.
No, that's right. So then I ended up being, no, you're right. So I ended up not going to Western Michigan, which is a team that was interested in me and coming there and redshirting. I ended up having no schools interested in me. So I'm like, what do we do now? Here we go. Right. I remember, and the assistant coaches and my advisors around the time said, listen, Tom, stick it through here for the 4 years. You're going to get your education and you're going to have your education to fall back on. And here's your plan B. And I don't know if it's because I'm not comfortable with plan B, because I've never had a plan B. I didn't even know that was a real thing growing up. And so I remember thinking to myself, no, I'm going to go try my luck at pro, and I'm going to go play pro hockey. And they're like, where are you going to go? Like, it's not like you sign NHL deals or American League deals here. I'm like, I'm going to try and get a job in the East Coast League and that sort of thing. So I ended up getting a tryout. I left my 4 full-year scholarship for a tryout.
You left your scholarship at Bowling Green. Wow.
Yeah.
And then you had a tryout for Knoxville in the East Coast League?
In the UHL at the time.
And they were in the UHL what year was that?
That was 2000, 2001.
Okay, because I had played in Knoxville in the East Coast League probably 8 years earlier or something like that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right on. So I go there and I have a pretty good year. Within maybe three weeks of the season, I'm doing really well. I get called up to Cincinnati Mighty Ducks.
Nice.
I get to work with Francois Lair for a month straight, which was pivotal in my game. I was scrambly. I had very little, I'd never blocked a puck. I reacted to everything.
Now, Cincinnati, was that the American Hockey League?
The American Hockey League.
That was the AHL. Okay. Fantastic.
That's right. So I go up there and they actually offered me a contract, a 3-year contract. And I'm probably 15 games into my UHL career. They offered me a 3-year deal at $10,000 signing bonus. And what's interesting about this, I actually asked my advisor, I said, okay, this is great. I want to sign this. And they said, okay, well, 10,000 signing bonus. I've never heard of that. It's usually 50 is the minimum. They're like, let me look into that. So the time that we waited to look into it, they pulled it off. They pulled it off the table.
What was the deal besides the 10,000 signing bonus?
It was like a 3-way. So it was East Coast, AHL, NHL. They had 3 ways back then.
So they pulled it off the table. So they probably liked you because you were and this is where the control thing comes in as well with the teams, right? They were like,
that's right.
Wow.
They were like, they didn't know why I hesitated. And so that actually burned me. And for years, that fueled me, but it also was a nightmare. Like, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and be like, why didn't I just say yes and say fax the papers, please?
Yeah.
So especially during my following year. So after that year, I have a good season. We're calling Anaheim back 100 times in the summer saying, at least give me a camp, But there's something about it that they didn't like. And they went on and they actually signed Brizgalov 2 days later, which was very interesting. So anyway, what ended up happening is the next year I went to the WCHL, which in Alaska, which was the higher of the 3 AA pro leagues, I guess that you could say at the time. And I end up injuring my knee, a catastrophic injury on my right knee. Game 1, first game, I tore my ACL, MCL, PCL, and broke my tibial plateau.
No, let's pause that. Let's go back to when you were leaving college.
Yeah.
And what did they say to you when you said you were going to leave?
They told me, they said, listen, don't leave this. This is a great opportunity for you, to stay here for 4 years and get your education. I know you want to play pro, but what if you get injured?
So even that question, and I'm not even going to say this because it programs people, but a lot of people don't, and they don't teach this stuff in school. But if I say something and it's got the word you in it, it programs you.
Interesting.
So I wouldn't say that. I would say, well, what if a goalie left and gets injured? What happens to their career then? But what happens is it plants the seed in the subconscious mind, especially if they
Yeah,
use the word you when they
that's
say
right.
that. Like if I say
Crazy.
you are a great goalie, that's a powerful, positive seed that's planted in your mind.
Right.
But
No, that
but
makes sense.
if I say you followed by something potentially negative, it plants a negative seed in the mind.
Yeah, no kidding. It may have had something to do with it, that's for sure. But um, yeah, it was devastating for me at the time. I went into emergency surgery, and we were actually in Colorado Springs playing against the Colorado Gold Kings in a game we ended up winning. And I was a pretty big part of that win. It was a good win for us, and it was our first game of our season and that sort of thing. And I felt so good heading into that year. A year of pro under my belt, ready to take this on, and everything comes to a halt. I fly back home. I'm done for the whole season. They're giving me a 12-month recovery. My doctor's telling me that there's a good chance you're never going to feel the same as an athlete without them saying you're probably done. I remember teammates coming into the hospital and seeing me and leaving like upset, thinking this guy's done. His career's over. And so not just an ACL, but to do all three like that, the integrity of your knee is just toast. And so I ended up coming back, and my father-in-law, who actually is in the game of hockey as well, it's Mike Murphy. He got me set up with the Leafs doctors, Ogilvy Harris, and their trainers, Dennis Lindsay. And so I spent pretty much an 8-hour day, 6 days a week for 10 months downtown Toronto. I would drive all the way there. I'd pack breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I would head down there to rehab this leg and work out the rest of my body and do that whole thing, which
That is
was
powerful.
which was intense, right? And so throughout that process, I'm lying to teams, telling them that, yep, I feel great. Give me a chance in training camp and this and that. And because I missed practically the entire season, which I did, I wasn't getting a lot of calls back and a lot of like for sure camps to just even go to a camp and prove what I can do. And so I remember doing it with my mom. We went out and bought a whole bunch of VHS tapes. I must have bought 50 VHS tapes. And I'm recording back then when you had to press record play, and you're creating these VHS tapes of games I played in Knoxville and putting a cover letter together and putting them in orange envelopes. And I sent them to every NHL team, every American League team, every East Coast League, UHL, West Coast League. I sent it out and just kind of waited for the phone to ring. And I ended up getting 3 phone calls and
Good for you.
a couple of letters back. Yeah, it was pretty cool. But it was
Here's a
interesting.
question for you, just based on doing that. And then we'll go back to what you
Sure.
want to see there. But what advice would you give goaltenders today if they do not have a contract offer, if they're in their 20s, if they're playing pro? What would you tell them?
Oh, it's easy. You make calls yourself, 100%, because of the simple fact that you have nothing to lose. If they're going to say no, then who cares? You're not offending anyone. You're not, maybe they're going to, disregard your phone call, but something is going to stick. It's going to happen. And I feel like the more you contact teams, something builds inside of you. You're convincing yourself every time you get on the phone. And maybe your first phone call sounds like this. Hey, coach, my name's Tom. Give me a chance. I played last year. I'm hurt, but I feel good. And maybe your last, you know, phone call sounds like this. Listen, I'm ready to go. Let's go. Bring me down there. It's showtime. I'm going to be the best goalie you've ever seen, because you're basically selling yourself and convincing yourself through the whole summer in talking. So I believe talking, and I didn't even know I was doing it. It's not like I wrote my goals down and did self-talk. I was actually talking to GMs. And by the end, you get good at it and you're calling coaches like more confident than you've ever been. And you're basically convincing yourself and telling yourself, I will be the best goalie that's ever played for your franchise. Like you're overshooting it just because you're getting so many no's. And so I made all those contacts. I got a bunch of teams that reached out to me, and one of the teams was Greenville in the East Coast League. And they had actually won it the year before, and they had Jamie Platt there, who was their team MVP. He was in American League training camp, and they had Michael Garnett, who ended up playing long in the KHL. Really good goalie. He signed with Atlanta. Greenville was affiliated with them, and I had a great training camp with them. Lied to them, told them my knee was perfect. It wasn't. It's still. I remember I got cleared to skate probably 3 weeks prior. And I went down to a local rink where a buddy of mine at Iroquois Park in Whitby allowed me to come in at 11 o'clock because he was the custodian there. And so I went in there at 11 o'clock, just my bottoms, headphones, backwards hat, hood up. And he kept the lights off, and I just skated for 2-3 hours just to get myself where I needed to be. And so I went down to training camp, had a really good training camp. And he pulls me in the office and he says, listen, Michael Garnett's coming down here. They want him to play. And our team MVP from last year is coming, and he won us a championship here. You're out of here. And I told him, I said, where the hell do I go now? I remember sitting in his office, and he says to me, I'm going to help you find a team. And I said, fantastic. Pick up the phone. And he goes, I'll call your agent and we'll get this thing figured out. I really want to help you. You did so well here. You know, we're going to find you a spot. I said, no, I'm not leaving your office until you find me a team. You said you're going to help me.
And who was that? Who was that again?
John Marks.
John Marks. Yes, I remember the name.
John Marks. Good guy. I said, let's do it right now. I said, I know I'm your last meeting because there was 5 of us standing outside the door.
Yeah.
I said, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. I said, let's find a spot right now because I know training camps are underway. And he's like, I remember being really stubborn with him saying, you got to find me a spot here now. And really, he was just trying to get me out of his office. I'm sure.
Yeah.
You know, so long story short is I tried to get him to pick up the phone at the time. I followed up with him. I called my actual goalie partner from Knoxville my first year, who was actually in my wedding.
Who was
Brad
that?
Guzda. Brad Guzda. Great friend of mine. He was in my wedding. We still keep in touch to this day. He's such a good dude. His son actually plays in Charlotte. He signed with Florida as a goaltender. So I kept in touch with him. So I called him on my drive home from Greenville. And I said, what do I do here? He goes, don't go home. Come here. So I'm like, okay. So I go to his house in Knoxville, and I sit there and I'm working out. I'm training. He puts a piece of plywood down on his gravel driveway, and he's firing tennis balls at me. I'm not going home. Like, I'm playing pro hockey this year, hell or high water. I didn't work this hard to not go. So I end up getting a call from my agent, who I would bug all the time. He said, listen, there's an emergency backup job in Elmira. If you can make it there, the game is tomorrow. I said, I'm going. Let's go.
I love
so
it.
Here I am.
You just want to pause you. Who was your agent?
At the time, it was Brad Robbins with KSR.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So they ended up selling their business to Pat Brisson with his business. But so he was kind of a local guy who had a bunch of local players from my hometown. And so I ended up driving to Elmira, and the whole time there, I'm just getting jacked. I'm cranking.
How long was the drive? How long was the drive from Knoxville?
So from Knoxville to Elmira, I don't know. It must have been about 9 hours. No, so it was probably 13 hours, 14 hours. So I get there for pregame skate for the next day, and I'm so fired up, so jacked, and I have absolutely nothing to lose. I've kind of tapped into the heads of these coaches and GMs to know enough that I'm no longer relevant. This is it. And I didn't play last year, and I cannot not play this year. I have to play this year. And so I got gas from Greenville, and here I am. And I remember, no joke, getting a shutout in the pregame skate. Now, guys were probably floating around out there and not really trying, but it didn't matter. I'm grinding. I'm making noise. I'm hitting the post loud. I'm coming out. I'm trying to stay on long. And I remember I walked up to the coach after, and I said, listen, you got to play me tonight. I'm going to win this game for you guys. And he goes, listen, just, you're here. We'll use you if we need you. And I said, okay, well, I'll win this game for us.
I love it.
I know I have nothing to lose. So the game starts, and the guy that I'm backing up, kind of goes through a bit of a loafy warm up, and I get in the warm up, and I'm going ballistic. And to be honest with you, looking back, I wouldn't recommend this either. I'm not even really letting him back in the net. I'm like staying in the net in warm up.
And he's the guy starting the game, and you're in there. You're just staying in the net. You're not letting him get back in.
That's right.
Now, was there any conflict? What? Do you remember who it was?
Yeah, I believe it was Scott Rideout.
Scott Ryder. Okay.
God love him.
Yeah. And so what would he do anything or say anything when you wouldn't let him back in the net?
I did let him eventually. I probably took maybe 3 or 4 or 5 extra shots, and then I get out, and usually you go for a skate up by the red line.
Yeah.
I would stand about 6 feet away and just wait till my turn again.
And ready to go back in. He had to be looking over his sholdder a little bit.
Like, what is this guy doing, right? And he kind of saw the energy I brought in the pregame skate, that's for sure. And so there, and I was really positive with him. And like I said, these are things that I'm not necessarily recommending, but this is just what happened. And at the time, I was young, and this is just the way it was at the time. And looking back, they're funny stories, but there's different advice I'd give to kids these days anyway, with regards to that. But so anyway, they score on him in the first period, and I'm playing for Fort Wayne Comets. So that's the team that signed me. And, they ended up scoring a goal on him mid first period. And I stood up on the bench, and he had about 9 shots. Like, he's playing pretty good. It's 1-0 for them. I stood up on the bench, and I looked at the coach, and I said, "Put me in right now. We're going to win this game." And he goes, "Sit down."
And was it 1-0? Was it 1-0 for the other team?
1-0.
1-0.
Yeah, 1-0. So all through the first and second period, after the coach does his little speech, I go to the hallway and I'm stretching. I'm doing squats. I'm making noise out there. I'm getting
Who was the coach? Who was the coach? Who was the coach?
It was, they called him the chief. I'll look it up.
Okay. No, it's all good.
I'll pull it up. Yeah. I forget what his name was. It was Greg. We just called him Chief.
Okay. Got it.
But anyway, it was, I'll pull it up. We actually won it with him. He was a great guy. So I'm making noise in the hallway, possibly a little bit, not disruptive, but definitely distracting to maybe the other attendee. But I knew that if I go home after this emergency backup game, that I'm done. Like, this is it. So, like, you got cupped in Greenville, you didn't play in this game, and that's it. And so a lot of training went into getting back to this point. And here I am in gear. We're in a building. This is it. So halfway through the second period, he gets scored on again to go 2-0. And I remember thinking to myself, if I'm going to sit here and just stay quiet and wait for my opportunity, which I knew the other goalie was coming back, I'm like, I'm never going to be able to live with myself. So believe it or not, I grabbed my stick, put my helmet on, and I just hopped the bench.
Whoa, hold it. So the game is going on. The game is going on. The other guy just misses another save. So it's 2-0 now for the other team. Your team's coming back, recovering after being scored on. And then you simply you don't ask the coach. You put your stuff on. You jump on the ice. Did the coach say anything when you jumped on the ice?
He didn't even see me off the bench. So the other team is going down the train, and they're high-fiving gloves. And so I just hopped it so fast, and I just skated as hard as I could down. And the other goalie's
not gonna know that the coach.
So he's down in his he's got his elbows on his knees like this. He's kind of looking down, probably going through his post-goal mental, strategies. And he's looking like this, and he looks up, and I'm standing there, and he goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "I don't know. He wants me in." And so the funny thing is that I get in there, and I start butterflying like crazy. I'm scraping my crease. I'm going T-pushing out, T-push back, full splits.
A lot of energy. You're hyping it up.
Let's go. I'm going crazy, right? Just so jacked here. And I'm looking over at the bench a little bit, and the coach doesn't do anything. He just kind of lets it go. He just kind of let it go.
What am I going to do now?
Yeah.
What could he have done? What could he have done?
Whatever, right? So we end up
Wow.
we end up tying it up. We win the game in shootouts. First star.
You get first star of the game.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
What did the
It
coach
was so
say to you
crazy.
after? What did the coach say to you after the game?
Just came up to me and said, "Nice job."
He didn't
want
say,
to,
"Hey, do you want my
didn't
job?"
get into anything.
You
Didn't
might
get
as well
into
take
anything.
my
He goes,
job. He didn't say that.
nothing. He goes, "Nice job." So then the other goalie who was out, it was
Wow.
actually Pokey Reddick. Do you remember that guy?
Yeah, I played against Pokey in the Western Hockey League. Great goaltender, great guy.
Great goaltender, great guy. He was the goalie that was out because he had dehydration from a game the night before.
And he had previously played for the Winnipeg Jets and the Edmonton Oilers.
That's right.
Yeah.
So this was at the tail end of his career. It might have been his last year playing, to be honest with you. So he went from one day on the IR to seeing kind of what I did that game. And I remember talking about it with him after, and that one day IR turned into about a week. He gave himself a week off just because I don't know, just looked like he didn't have to come back so quickly. And so we ended up, long story short, with that season, just to kind of move on, is we end up winning the entire league. That team was set up to win a championship. I will say that. We had a really good team. We won the whole thing. We won the championship. I was MVP of the playoffs and I was MVP of the league, to be honest with you, in that season. And it was like all the bad luck and scenarios that had happened in my career. It was like I kind of found myself in a situation where this is an opportunity. This team's really good. And they had built a team to win it. They were renovating their new arena and they sunk some money into this team. And we won the whole thing that year. And I had St. Louis, LA Kings, and Colorado Avalanche all offer me a contract after the season.
You bet on yourself, basically.
I guess.
The coach wasn't even thinking of putting you in. You jump on the ice. You tell the other goalie, "Hey, I'm in. Coach wants me in." Boom. Your team comes back, wins the game, and you go on to win MVP of the league. That is phenomenal. Cool. 3 offers from NHL teams from that, simply from betting on yourself. That's cool. Powerful stuff, Tom.
Yeah, it was really cool. And just kind of that headstrong on how it happened actually really fueled me throughout the season. And, it taught me a lot about, like I was saying, going back and calling these GMs and calling these coaches, is that just the way it's happening almost kind of, sets the table that this can't fail. I've told myself too many times, this is happening and, you're going to catch your luck at one point. And sure enough, I did in that season, ended up playing with the Fort Wayne Comets, and they were great, good players. Like, this team could have probably won it with a lot of other goalies as well. And, but it was just the right time, right place for me at that moment. And I kind of knew it because, jumping on that bench, I knew this team was good. And I'm thinking, man, this would be a place to play. This is it. I got to take advantage now. And so it was an interesting situation on how it all happened. It was a fun year and taught me a lot about winning. And it was my year after my injury too, which was so good, coming home the next summer, not injured, but with a little UHL, ring with a whole bunch of fake diamonds around it. It was pretty special.
I love it. You bet on yourself. Think of the confidence you would have had to bet on yourself, jump over those boards,
for sure.
And
it was definitely a really cool situation on how many times you bet on yourself, and then to win it. It really felt like I felt after that year, and I signed with the Avalanche. I remember thinking, I can do anything. I can keep this going forever because I could be headstrong enough to, if I get into a situation where I'm not getting played, get into a situation where it's not looking good, I can somehow, with this momentum and this belief factor and exercising, being aggressive at times when you need to be, I just felt like I can play this game for a long time. You know what I mean?
And there's no reason. It sounds like you really focused on your controllables too. Like as far as working out, getting in shape, making sure you're strong, working hard in practice, giving it everything you had, and then taking the action there. Wow.
For sure. So we just won the whole thing. I signed with the Avalanche. Craig Billington was a real influence, in making my decision there to sign with them. And it was going to be a two-way. The other two teams offered me a three-way. So this one felt like, you know what, it's a good time for me. I'm not getting any younger. I want to say I was like 24 at the time. And it would have been, what was interesting is that it would have been the exact year I graduated from Bowling Green. So I ended up doing the 1 year at Bowling Green, which I never regret. I actually met my wife there, which was which couldn't have been any better.
So did she finish off her college, or what did she do?
So she actually stayed at Bowling Green until I injured myself, and then she actually finished her school at York University in Toronto, my injured year.
What did she get her degree in?
So as a teacher.
Okay. Oh, so she's a smarter one between the two of you?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like my wife too. My wife went to McGill and stuff like that. Whereas I'm like you. I dropped out. I went 2 years.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
What school did you go to?
University of Calgary.
Okay, right on.
Yeah.
After the WHL.
After the Western Hockey League. Yeah. And then from there I went to the Knoxville or the.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, so it worked out great because Colorado didn't even have an East Coast League team. They were like, no, we only have you and Peter Budaj. That's all we have in our minors. They didn't even have other goalies. So that was the year. Yeah, that was actually the year Patrick Waugh retired.
Now, when you said Craig Billington was a big influence, how was he a big influence with you signing with Colorado?
Well, he was the player development, for the Colorado Avalanche. So he's the one who met me. We talked. He's an ex-goalie. He has a goalie school in Muskoka at the time that he was like, I'd really like to get you at that. We can work all summer. He was local. And so I just felt really comfortable with him. And then obviously the Avs had won a cup like the year before. And so they were a really popular team, and he basically, confirmed that I'm going to play in the American League for the entire run here. So that was really exciting for me. I didn't want to put myself in a situation where they're going to start me in the East Coast League, which looking back, it could have been fine playing on those other teams and just betting on yourself and working your way up. But I thought that was just such a stable situation. And I wasn't used to stability. So when I saw it, I was just like, yeah, let's do this. I'd like to come here. And so it worked out really well. I ended up playing with Peter Budaj there for 2 years. One of the best guys I've ever met. He's such a good guy. He taught me a lot about how to be a good teammate. And I'm a pretty competitive guy. And so he was such a good teammate that I noticed it. And I figured, like, I have to be as good as him at everything if I want to be looked upon as good as him and that sort of thing. So I actually
how was he? How was he a great teammate? Like, what did he do?
Oh man, this guy is like. Well, do you see what he has on his helmet? He has Ned Flanders from The Simpsons, and we all know Ned Flanders' personality, right? And he's in great shape. So he's got Ned Flanders in like a ripped, like no shirt on, holding a Slovakian flag. If you want to Google Peter Budaj helmets. And so everybody called him Ned because of the fact that he was just like overly nice. He was so nice. He would always stay out and do extra drills. Didn't matter if it was his first year, second year, third year. Everybody loved him. He laughed at everybody's jokes. He was just and he was a dude too. Like, he was just such a good dude. And so, learning that from him, and we were really close and roommates, it really helped me become a better teammate because he was doing good teammate at such an elite level. He was just an elite teammate. And I feel like that's a couple reasons that it opened some doors for him later in his career, not only because he's a good goalie, but he's just such a good dude. So
teams
really,
wanted
really,
him. They want him on his team, right?
For sure, right? He's the opposite to me at that time. He was not disruptive at all when it came to, competing for the net. He was just a great guy. And he was able to play really well and be a good guy. And so leading up to that, I kind of felt like I had to be a bit alpha. I had to be a certain way, but he really taught me how to be a good teammate, and it served me well for the rest of my career. And so I try to work on that with young goalies now at an earlier age, being the best teammate that you can be and cheering for your goalie partner. I know you've talked about that, right? But
so if you're to go back to that situation in the United Hockey League when you jumped on the ice, would you have done that after playing with Peter Budaj?
It's crazy that's a tough question, because I feel like the way I was up until that point helped me get to that point. And the way I was past that, now you're in the, you're signed with an NHL team. So you have to conduct yourself a certain way. And so I think that, to be honest with you, and I might reflect on this and change my mind, but I think it's important to respect your team and respect your teammates and respect the coach and the coach's decisions and all that stuff. But I feel like on your come up, and you're playing in the UHL, and you're playing in the East Coast League, and you're playing NCAA. And I know that those teams in those leagues are some people's dream to play in those. I get that. But I had a, an expectation of myself. And so it's not that I disrespected the leagues and the levels and the coaches and that sort of thing. It's that I had my bar set higher, and it's not that I felt bigger than it or Bowling Green's, not good enough for me or anything like that. I just had this level of belief and the scrappiness to get to where I wanted to be. And it definitely, that scrappiness when it came to the way I kind of was and kind of my energy, I was able to, with maturity and playing with Peter Budaj, and now walking around in the summertime wearing Avalanche training gear and going to the gym with that on, there was a maturity that did kick in. And so I think it served me well up until that point, scrapping to get there. And then at that point, it was time to become a pro when it comes to the way you conduct yourself and, handle situations, because now it's a little different.
Was Patrick Roy with the Avalanche at the time?
No, so it was actually, I'm in a newspaper article in my hometown here, because he retired and everybody went up. So Abisher went up to the number one spot. Phil Sauve came from the American League to the NHL as their backup. And then Peter Budaj and I. So I came in when Patrick Roy retired that exact summer.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
It was after the summer where he picked up the puck and held it in the air. Do you remember when he did that? But the puck was laying there,
and
they banged it in the playoffs.
Oh,
like that.
Yeah.
That was his last year. Yeah.
Okay, so I just wondered, that would have been interesting if you ever played with him, right? Because two really strong personalities.
That'd be crazy. Yeah, I never got a chance really, but I learned a lot from those years, and played in a lot of big moments with in the American League. It was the lockout year, so it was a really good level of hockey. I had a really good first year, pretty good second year. And then the next year, it almost looked as though, because of my age, I was like 26 years old at this point. You started to see them turn the page on older guys in their system. And that's kind of the nature of the American League. Is I was getting better. I felt like I was getting better every year.
You were getting better.
But they started to, you could start to see the waves change, and they're bringing in a guy 4 years younger, and it's his turn. He's drafted. And so I started to see that a little bit. And so I ended up going to, so after my third year, I actually went down to the East Coast League for half of the season. And looking back, I wish I enjoyed that time a little more. We were in San Diego. We gave birth to our oldest, Ava, in San Diego. And so we're playing hockey. I'm in San Diego. We have a baby. And looking back,
great place to play, hey? Great place to play,
best.
San Diego.
Unbelievable. And my wife's from California, which ended up working out, in some magical way that it was perfect because her parents were there. And
no, here's a question. So when you were with the Avalanche, what was the closest you got to playing a game for Colorado?
Yeah, so the closest that I got from playing a game, I could say, and I've never really put it into words, but was sitting in my hotel room and watching the team play with no backup. So I was at the time second in the league in save percentage and tied for fourth in goals against
in the American Hockey League.
In the American Hockey League.
Yep.
And games played. And this is deep into the season. So I'm having a year. My first year there, I was having a year and feeling good and so excited to be wearing the maroon in Hershey. They were maroon at the time, and just loving my life down there. I got engaged that year, just on top of the world. I remember sitting there going, why is Colorado so far away from their American League team?
Yeah.
So Sauvé got sick throughout the day, and they couldn't pull anybody up. So I thought, one of us is getting called up here eventually, because they started the game with no backup. And then the following game, we're thinking Sauvé's back. He's not back. And we're going, me and Buda are going, why are they not calling one of us up? And they're like, apparently he's going to be back after this game. So I don't know if it was just the logistics of it, the proximity of it, but
yeah, it probably was.
It seemed like everything was just going to go like this. I'm having a great year. At the time, I was, the number one guy playing in the bigger games, my first year there. And Phil Sauvé is just nowhere to be found on the bench in the NHL. And I'm sitting there in the hotel going, how are they not calling one of us up? Like, not even a phone call. Like, can you get here, by the next game?
If you could project your UHL self into that situation with the first game, would you have been on the phone calling?
I think
talking
that's
to
a funny question. I've never been asked that. So I think, looking back, now that my career is over, what I probably should have done was immediately gone to the rink, grabbed my stuff. We were on the road, jumped on a plane, and just showed up.
Yeah.
Just show up. What's the worst that they could do? What's the worst? Say, well, how'd you get here? What are you doing here? Even if Sauvé is ready to play and back up that night, just be like, you know what? I just figured I'd show up. So you're right.
That would have been a huge move at the time. A huge move at the time.
Yeah. So maybe I cooled down a little bit too much, and it was trying to tread lightly a little bit. And but yeah, looking back, now that it never happened, I probably should have just got on a plane myself and just told my coach I'll be back. And he's like, where are you? I'm like, I'm getting called up, and just kind of make it happen for myself. But I never thought of that. But that's probably what my UHL self would have done. That's for sure.
Who was your coach in the AHL?
It was Paul Fixter.
Okay.
Paul Fixter, yeah, who ended up coaching there for a little bit. Yeah, so that was a good experience for me. It was really good, some stability. I signed 3 one-year deals while I was there.
Okay.
That's how they did that with their free agents. And then, so after my third year, and I spent half the season in the East Coast League, we had a baby, and, you're trying to get some traction in your life when it comes to finances and that sort of thing. And so I'm really looking at Europe at that time, because a lot of the players that I started in the American League with were on their 3-year deal. So basically my freshman class, they were all on their 3-year deal. So their 3-year deals were up, and mine was coming up. And they actually said to me, we want to sign you again for a 4th year. Yep. But I said, where will I be playing? And they said, well, you're going to start the year in San Diego. I'm like, okay, well, I appreciate that, but here I go again. Now I'm flipping into my East Coast Leagues, my UHL self again, and I say I'd like to try my luck in Europe. And so they're like, yep, well, no problem. Makes it easy on us. Take care. Comb your hair. See you later. So I'm like, okay, so it's over with them. Yep. I went to the Blackhawks camp because I got a deal to go to the Blackhawks camp, and they actually offered me a 2-way deal to play NHL, AHL, and they wanted me to back up Corey Crawford, who led the league in games played in Norfolk the year before. So we're right at the end of camp. I'm like, I don't know if I can stay here. I got to go make some more money. And I knew you could make a little more money in Europe at the time. And I just felt like the time was right for me.
What were they offering you? What were they offering you?
In Europe?
No, in Chicago back then.
The contracts I think were like 85,000 in the American League, and then league minimum in the NHL.
Okay.
And so it wasn't bad, but I knew that there was 3 players that were from Europe on my team in Hershey that were going to Finland, going back to Sweden, and they were going to make, €100 tax-free type of a thing, right? And so something about that, like I said, we had a young daughter,
You're thinking of your family.
That's right. And my wife was pregnant with another one. And so we were going to have our second child. And, you're looking for a house. We're still bouncing back and forth between our parents' houses in the summer because we're only home for about 4 or 5 months. And so the finances kind of kick into it a little bit. And I'm getting a bit older. And so I just thought I'd go try my luck over there. And what's interesting is that after my Blackhawks camp, I thought, at this point, I thought there'd be a laundry list of European teams just be like, oh, we'd love to have you. Let's go. You played great. Let's do it. Crickets. Absolutely crickets, believe it or not. So no one's calling. My agent stops returning my phone calls because I'm calling them every 3 days.
And you had already turned the Blackhawks down?
I did, yeah. I turned the Blackhawks down.
Oh, what did they say to you when you turned them down?
No problem. I understand because I knew, and I played 3 years at that level. I knew I was going to go sit behind Crawford, and he led the league in games played. I want to say they played him like 60 games. He was nuts. So basically, I'm going to bench warm the entire time. And he was good. So it was one of those situations where I figured I bet on myself again, and let's go to Europe. And so the season gets underway in Europe, and no calls. So I'm like, here we go. Here we go again. So I got to flip it into UHL mode again. And I remember,
bet on yourself.
Yeah, I know. I remember my father-in-law and my dad, they're like, you know what, maybe it was a good run. Like you're 26, 27 years old. It was a good run. You got kids now. Just kind of pack her in here and like, let's get moving, And I remember thinking, no, I'm not doing that yet. I'm going to go. So this is another funny story. Almost like the pulling the goalie situation when I flipped it back into UHL mode. So I'm following teams in Europe. And I'm looking at their stats. I'm looking at the goalies. I'm looking at all their situations because the internet was a big thing that, you could find everyone's stats and see games online and that sort of thing when it really started to happen. So I'm looking at teams and I'm tracking teams and I'm looking for teams that have lost 4 in a row. And I'm trying to make phone calls and I'm calling down there and I'm looking to see if I have any connections with a player that I played with or someone that I know is on that team. And sure enough, I start tracking this team in Finland, Rauman Lukko, and a buddy of mine that I played with in Hershey for 2 years there, Mikko Viitanen. He's playing for Rauma. And so I'm following that team. I call him once. I'm like, hey, what's it like down there? Like, what's your team like? He's like, yeah, we're struggling right now, but we're like second in the league in goals for, and we're dead last in goals against. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. So I'm watching the team. They lose 2 more games in a row. And I remember calling him. I timed it. It's 3:30 Toronto time. And I call him because I know they had lost to their rival team that's 45 minutes away, Asset Pori, in Pori. So I time it so I know they're on the bus driving home. I got an hour here before they get on the bus. It's 10:30 in Finland. It's 3:30 in Toronto. And I remember calling him on the phone. He didn't answer right away. And I called him like 4 or 5 times. He picked up the phone. I'm like, Mikko, it's Tommy. I'm like, can you do me a favor and walk the phone up to your coach right now? And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, he goes, Tommy, I can't do that. I'll call you tomorrow. So yeah, he hangs up. I call him back and go, Mikko, stop screwing around. I said, I will e-transfer you $1,000 if you walk the phone up to your assistant coach and hand him your phone and say you got some crazy friend of yours that wants to talk to you. And he goes, holy shit, Tom. Holy cow. So he goes, okay. So he walks up, and as soon as I get on the phone, all these years of me calling coaches, calling GMs, I'm like, listen, my name's Tom. I played in the American League for 3 years. I know I can be a difference down there for you. Give me a chance. I'll fly down myself. I'll pay for my flight. I'll pay for my hotel. Give me one practice. And if you don't think I can play in a game, then I'll fly home and you'll never hear from me again. But you've got to give me a chance. I can stop the bleeding right now. And he jumps on the phone and he doesn't speak great English. He's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't understand what you're saying. So he hands the phone to the head coach.
Finnish is a much different language, and
for sure. So he hands the phone to his head coach, and the coach says, "Can you be here by Thursday?" And I'm like, "I'm on my way. I'll leave tonight." And so he's like, "All right, I'll see you Thursday." Boom. I fly down there. I call my agent, who hasn't done anything for me. I said at the time, it's a new agent at this time, and they had sold the company to Pat Brisson and these guys, and I was a low man on the totem pole at that point with that big company. And the PR guy that I'm dealing with, I called him. I said, I got a job in Finland. I'm going to Finland. So I go to Finland. I get in the hotel. Here we are again, back in the UHL, it seems like. And I get out there, practice with them on Thursday. Lights out. I'm just going like it's game 7 of the playoffs. And so lights out in that. And pre-game skate the next day for the Friday game, lights out. And I told the coach, I said, I'm playing tonight. I just skated by him. I said, I'm playing tonight. And he goes, yep, you are. I'm like, let's go. So we get in.
I love it.
We go on a run. And my wife and kid didn't come down at that time because it was too unstable of a situation. And I'm basically forcing a tryout here. And so we win the game. I'm goalie of the month in the month of November, and they actually give you a Mercedes to drive that, and they toss the player of the month, the Mercedes, whoever gets it in the league gets to drive it for the month. So I called my wife. I said, they're signing me for the rest of the season. I picked her up in the airport in the Mercedes, and I played the rest of the season there. They went from dead last. We ended up making the playoffs and losing in game 7 to a team that won the whole thing. It was actually Tuukka Rask's team.
Whoa, really? So you played against Tuukka Rask there?
Yeah, that year. And that was the year he played World Juniors. He was a young buck at the time, and I was like 27. And so I picked my wife up. We really enjoyed our time down there. We lost in like 7 games to them in the first round, and we had just squeaked into the playoffs. So it was like 1 plays 8, and we were 8. And so we ended up, it was actually a good year for me though, and kind of put myself on the map down there in Europe. And then the next year I signed with the Red Army in the KHL, which was huge for me and really exciting to go down there. And it felt like, for me, here we go. I'm 28 now, and I'm going to get a chance to make some actual money here and some sustainability when it comes to things financially. And that was the goal at that time, was to try and play in Russia. And so started working out for me that way.
Wow. Yeah. So that's awesome. So basically how you got to Finland to play in Liga, the same league that Tim Thomas played in before he played in the National Hockey League. It's a great league there. It's a great league.
Awesome. I loved it there.
You basically had to bribe one of your ex-teammates. I love it. Say, if you give the phone to the coach, I'm going to send you $1,000. So did you actually send him $1,000?
I gave him $1,000 when I got there. And he asked for it too.
Canadian or American? Canadian or American?
He's from Finland. Mikko.
I know, but did you give him Canadian or American money?
I gave him American.
Okay,
I gave him American money
because you're Canadian. You could have just given him 1,000 Canadian.
I thought he was kind of joking. He came up to me. He goes, "Where's my grand?" And I go, "What?" He goes, "Where's my grand?" I go, "Oh, that's right. I forgot to give you that. I said I'll give it to you tomorrow." And I walked up and handed it to him. And he's like, "Thanks." He just jammed it in his pocket. We were good buddies though, but he bought me a few beers that night.
That's awesome. So basically he walks the phone to the coach. You tell the coach, I guarantee I'm going to win for you. I'll get there myself. And you told the coach, don't even bring me there. I'll get there myself.
I'm
coming there. So it's almost like
no risk.
You took control. Yeah, you took control. And then you get there, you're practicing, your lights out in practice. You skate by the coach, you go, I'm playing tonight.
That's right.
So you took control. So that's a little bit of a superpower that you had there. It's like you would have a vision of you playing or dominating, like you would see it before it happened, clearly in your mind, obviously.
For sure.
And then you would just take the action to get in there. Tell the coach, I'm playing.
Yeah, that's right. And I feel like the travel there, similar to my travel from Knoxville to Elmira when I played with Fort Wayne, that travel, once you told the coach what you're about to do, I said, I will stop the bleeding in here, and we're gonna make the playoffs. And I gave him all this stuff. When you say that out loud to someone, not even just writing it on paper and saying it out loud in your bedroom, but when you talk to the coach and tell them that you're going to do that, things start to line up. And the next thing you know, I'm on the flight there, paid for it myself, and I got my gear there. I packed like I was never going to come home with how much stuff I brought. And I'm flying there the whole time going, man, I got to deliver. I just told this guy I'm going to go do this. So I got to be something that this guy's never seen. So when you get into the practice and you absolutely grind, you know, everything starts to work out because you're elevated intensity, your adrenaline's pumping, you're in a new country, you know, you don't understand what they're saying out there. And just all the feelings that happened, just I rolled into that first game and just laid it down heavy and just felt like this is happening. I've already told myself it's happening. Kind of like what you talk about when you know you're making the save before he even shoots. You already know, you know, so it kind of happened that way for me. And I do believe that the self-talk and the self, vouching for yourself and telling them what you're going to do, you do it, you know, when everything lines up, you know, things have to line up for sure, but you find a way to make it happen. And it worked out for me. And then 3 years in Russia later, I felt like everything that I had done up until that point. It's interesting about Russia because it's a very good league and very difficult day to day. The way they treat you, the practice schedules, the food. There's so many things that are so difficult down there to mentally, deal with, that I felt that my rocky road of a career, my gravel driveway to get there, it prepared me for dealing with things in Russia. And I know that there's a lot of good players that have gone to Russia and maybe only play half a season. Guys that did really well in the NHL can go down to Russia, and after 2 months of training camp, they're not into it. They don't want to do it. Yeah. And I don't know what their specific cases were, but I know that players that I had played with, and on a roster, we would have maybe 6 imports float in throughout the year. Float in, float out, float in, float out. And they were leaving like, I got to get out of here. And so for me, I had never made any substantial cash at that point. So that was really huge for me to make this work. And so anything that came my way that was strange or weird, and I have some stories from Russia that I'll wrap it up with here, but things that happened that were difficult, I don't know, maybe that outdoor cat kind of mentality, nothing really fazed me. And I was just so happy to be there. And I think that when some guys that go from the NHL to the KHL, they feel like this is the descent. And for me, it was the opposite. This was like, I'm here now. I'm going to make this work, you know?
So here, did you bring your family? Did you bring your family to the KHL?
So my first year when I went to the Red Army, we didn't, because we had,
So from Liga, Red Army, and then Novosibirsk.
Yeah. So in Novosibirsk, in my 2 years in Novosibirsk, my family came with me.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. So here's the question: did you ever meet Putin?
I never met Putin. No.
Were you ever close to him?
But even better,
at an event,
Tretiak had his office. So his office was in CSKA building, just like the NHL offices are at the Scotiabank with the Toronto Maple Leafs. His office, and he actually owns our building. Somehow he, it's his building. Everyone's like, it's Tikhonov and it's Tretiak's building. So he had his office right across from our locker room. And so he would come out of his office, and in order to watch all the teams that came through, so he can keep an eye on the teams, because he was going to be the next, he's the Gary Bettman, I guess you could say, the commissioner of the KHL. And so that year when I played in the Red Army, he actually watched every single game right behind me, right by the glass. So the glass is there, and he would just stand like this, because the way the rink was, the tunnel was right at behind the net. And so he would stand there, he'd come out of his office, and he'd just sit there with his arms on there. And every time I go for a drink and go for a cruise, I'm like, there's Tretiak just watching every single minute of this.
Did you meet Tretiak?
I did, yeah. I ended up trying to talk to him all the time. I'd come off periods. After the first period, I'd skate up to him and I'd say, what'd you think of that one? Do you think because I knew he was the Blackhawks goalie coach at one point.
Yes.
His English was decent. And so I would come up to him, and he kind of gave me half the time of day. He kind of wanted to talk to me a little bit, but some days yes, some days no. But I'd go up to him and I'd say, should I have done this in that play? And he would talk to me a little bit. And then what was funny is that the next year in the KHL, they made a rule that if you had a Canadian goalie, it counts as 2 imports that next year. So the year I played with Red Army, 17 of the 30 teams were Canadian starting goalies.
Really?
So I think he thought that was a problem for Russia moving forward.
And they've changed it since. They have
changed that. Yeah. So an import counts. If you have a goalie that's an import, it counts as 2 imports for your team. So it became a lot more difficult to make it over there as a goaltender.
Okay.
But so I ended up signing a 2-year deal in Novosibirsk. I had 2 offers on the table. One team was going to be a pretty good team to go to, and Novosibirsk was going to be a little bit more. And I knew they were going to be a rough team to go play for, but I talked to my wife, and we were kind of like, you know what, let's do 2 more years here, sign this deal, and then probably that's it. You know what I mean? It seemed like that was the situation anyway. So we went to Novosibirsk, and believe it or not, not a lot of people have heard of Novosibirsk, but it's actually the 3rd biggest city in all of Russia. 3 million people there.
It's Siberia, right? Isn't it Siberia?
It is.
Yeah,
Central Siberia.
Yeah.
Good place to play. Nice areas in the city. Pretty modern buildings, modern cars driving around and stuff like that. So it was comfortable for the family, and comfortable enough, I guess you could say. It didn't go without some crazy situations that my wife and I don't talk about them too much, because I would say 60% of our time there was, let's never talk about this again. And 40% was just fun being a young family and doing something cool.
Did you ever see the KGB?
No, but they are around. You hear about them all the time down there.
Okay.
Yeah, they're a real thing.
And I know a lot of times people get paid in bags of cash. How did they work that? Yeah,
so my first year with the Red Army, that was the last year of the Russian Super League. And we actually got paid they just handed you a rubber band of cash. So they handed it to you. So you would get the cash. And I remember I used to keep mine in a protein container, because you could take it with you everywhere. If you take it to a restaurant, nobody looks at you weird. If you take it to take it anywhere, you could take it in a cab. No one's looking at it. I'm not carrying around a black gym bag or anything weird like that. So we would put our cash in protein containers and bring it to the rink with us. We'd put it on the bench so we could keep an eye on it.
Really?
We'd keep it in.
That would be a distraction. Little distraction.
I know, and we tip our trainers really hard just to keep an eye out for it for us. And they were always good. Our trainers were really good, and the people there were great. And the people involved with the team were awesome, and they made things comfortable for you. And it was really cool. So then you take the money and you take it to a Swedish bank in Moscow, and you'd stick it in there, and they'd take 5%, and you'd send it home, or you'd send it to a Swiss account or whatever it was we were doing at the time.
Got it.
But it was nuts.
And then you played one year in Sweden after the KHL.
Yeah. So my last year on my 2-year deal in Novosibirsk, any team that's not going to mathematically make the playoffs, they start unloading players. They start getting rid of players that are hurting their budget a little bit. So at that point, as soon as we were mathematically out, it was a yard sale across the league. And so if you weren't going to come back, then they're basically going to sell you to other countries and that sort of thing. So, which was kind of nice actually to go to Sweden, because at that time it's a little more North American style lifestyle there. And we had 2 young daughters, and we were actually pregnant with our third. And so, everybody thinks, wow, Tom, you played in Russia. That must have been hard. That must have been great. I'm like, well, my wife and I, but we had 2 toddlers, and she was pregnant. And so she's doing 30-hour plane trips from Siberia to Toronto. And it was so hard on her. And she was such a trooper through the whole thing. And, without her being so, ability to adapt to any situation, my career could have ended in Finland and just been like, you know what, it's too hard on the family, but she was able to hold down the fort at home, and things were happy and things are great. So it allowed me to keep on extending my years and continue to play, in Russia. And, it was a good time, in the simple fact that, it felt like for me, it was the highest level that I had played, and, cherished every minute of it down there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So if you could go back, let's do a little review here. If you could go back and you could go talk to your younger self that was playing high school hockey,
right?
What would you tell your younger self?
Yeah, to be honest with you, to tell my younger self, I would say keep working out, keep working out, keep working out. And when I reflect on some of my career, there was 3 seasons where I never played hockey, and all I did was work out. And I try to tell it to kids these days, and a lot of them will never get that opportunity because the season is so grueling, it's so taxing on you, and you're obviously not going to take a year off deliberately just to work out. You would never do that. But when so before my high school run, when I was at Bowling Green, when I was injured, those are 3 seasons I never even played. And all I did was lift weights and work out and just get so much stronger. And I found that I was able to get my game back a lot sooner than I think parents think they can get their game back. I think parents think you got to be on the ice all the time, or else you're going to lose it. You're not going to develop any skills. But it really showed me that lifting weights and working out and staying physically fit and really pushing the envelope on how fit you can be, you can find your game within a month. You really can. And some of my best starts I've ever had, even when I went to Finland, one of the best starts I've ever had, I didn't play hockey in November, right? Just jump on the ice here and there, like 2-3 times, a week. But I wasn't like in a season where working out is on the back burner. Just stay in the gym, and then you get out there. And I think people think, the old saying is like, well, you need a lot of games to feel comfortable. I disagree with that, just because I've lived it and I've seen it in my work in my life. So I would tell my younger self, continue to work out, and develop physically as a man and get as high as you can physically. And it's tough because it was definitely a weird route, most guys go to college, play 4 years, and then sign a pro deal, or play in the OHL or the WHL 4 years and then sign a deal. Mine was kind of scattered. I developed in the UHL, basically, which is not necessarily the development league, but those years off, actually, it burns inside of you wanting to play hockey so much. So your love of the game goes through the roof when you're off the ice, and and then your strength goes up, gets improved. And you just, that love and that strength, and then 1 month on the ice is a deadly combination. So for me, that's kind of where I see, where you need to take breaks and that sort of thing. But there's so much development in the gym, and taking a break just to get that drive and that love back. And you come back a different goalie because you're stronger, way stronger. And so that really helped me. And so I think talking to my younger self, it's funny when you ask me that, I can't actually think about what I would say. Almost nothing. And just kind of, and it just, I feel like, was I on the right track? Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but maybe no advice for me, particularly in that situation. Just head down and grind and keep working out was all I needed. I think if someone had told me be patient, maybe I would have not worked as hard in the gym. And so I don't think patience is what, believe it or not, is not advice that I would tell any parent or any kid. I wouldn't say stay patient. I would say get after it. Get to the gym and outwork everybody that you can see. There shouldn't be anybody in here working out. Do it now, work out now. You're good now, and
love it.
Get on the ice. And when you get on, be the best now and just grind. And I feel like
seize the day, the whole carpe diem. Yeah. That's what you did. You seized the day when you took that opportunity to jump on the ice and go in there. So here's another question. So since then, so that was your last year in Sweden. And you made a decision after that year not to play.
That's right.
Anymore. And then you became a firefighter.
I did. Yeah. So that summer I came home and did my fire course and got on the fire department right away. And I actually had a job with Aubrey Piotta in the Swiss league. And I actually had to call them before training camp and say, you know what, I'm jumping on the fire department now. And that was the year where, so my oldest daughter was starting grade 1, my middle daughter was starting JK, and my son was 3 weeks old.
The fire department must have been excited to have you on their hockey team.
Yeah, I think that's probably the only reason why I got hired, right? Because I maybe had a few spelling mistakes in my resume that they told me about later. But they were excited. I actually jumped on the fire team, and we won a championship there with them, and it was a lot of fun. My brother got on the fire department the same year, and we did fire college together, and then we were back kind of playing hockey together, and we bought a house in Aurora, and it just seemed like the right move for us at the time.
Nice. And then you've also started you also have a successful hockey training, goalie training business, and tell the listeners a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So when I got back, obviously I still loved the game and felt like I had a lot to offer kids when it comes to, playing technically and also advice and how to grind and be that outdoor cat and stuff like that. So I jumped on with a couple of the local teams here as their goalie coach. And I was actually doing it for volunteer hours because in order to get on the fire department, you needed volunteer hours. So I'm like, volunteer with some hockey team. That's all I know how to do anyway. So I jumped on. They're like, how much do we owe you? I'm like, no, you don't owe me anything, but can you sign me off on some volunteer hours? Like, yeah, absolutely. This will be great. So I ended up working with a bunch of teams and getting a decent following, being passionate with them and working with them. And then all of a sudden I was like, you know what, I should probably open up a little goalie school because these kids are calling me and saying, can we work in the summer? And I'm like, well, let's do it. I'm like, let's do some goalie camps. So we started doing goalie camps for about 8 years. I did goalie camps, and the ice availability through the season and through the summer started to go down, just like the hockey association just buy up all the ice. And so I thought to myself, you know what, I need my own ice. So we found a warehouse. We pumped ice into it and did that whole thing and kind of, once again, bet on yourself. It was financially, it was pretty heavy at the time. And, but knowing the numbers, running the numbers, knowing, you know what, this is going to work here. And I have my own place to be able to do it. So we ended up hiring a couple of goalie coaches, Dave Goverdi and Jason Mission, who had long pro careers. So they're full-time with us. And then we actually added on to it and put another rink off to the side under the same roof. And so now we got 2 pads going. We got a pro shop. And like even just taking on that business, it's just betting on yourself, and it's going to be really hard, but just kind of like one foot in front of the other, and I'll figure it out. I didn't really know much about business at the time, didn't really know much about putting a, program together when it comes to pay online and all this stuff, but just went at everything with the belief factor that, if I played in Russia and I'm pulling goalies in the UHL, I think I can handle this, you know what I mean? So just, it was some tough days though. It was like 18-hour days for months, and my wife, knowing my wife can handle what she could handle when we were in Russia, also gave me the confidence to do this and know that she's going to take care of everything at home. And that support was massive, because if I knew that it was going to derail things, if I had any sense that this was going to be too hard to get underway and get going, because once you, start leasing a building, it's $10,000 every month starting now. Mm-hmm. So you got to get this building up and running, and you got to get things going. So it wasn't like something I could just ease into. It was like, as soon as we get the keys, it's showtime. And so it's been 6 years we've been doing that. It's going great, and really hard, probably equally as hard as my career, to be honest with you, just getting this business up to where it's at. But I love every minute of it, and enjoy the grind.
So here's a question. What would your younger self that jumped over the bench, took over the net in that game, bet on himself, what would your younger self tell your current self now?
Yeah, good question. I think keep that outdoor cat part of you that you can handle this. And I think that when people look at, taking a risk and taking on big things, I think that they focus on all that's going to be difficult. And I think that you need to keep a close eye on how good it's going to be when it's up and running. How good it's going to be when you sign your deal, how good it's going to be when, you can take a step back from the business and you put the 5, 6, 7 years in, and, you can give yourself days off and everything's managed and everything's really good. But I think that focusing on that and constantly focusing on how good it's going to be when you're there, and keep staying in a good mood and enjoying, your grind, enjoying the grind. I think I always use this quote just because it's funny, but I think Miley Cyrus said it the best. It's not what's waiting on the other side, it's the climb. And she says that in one of her songs.
I love that song.
Yeah,
people might make fun of me, but I love that song.
Yeah, so cheesy, right? But it's so true. Like, I think that you say it all the time too, is that like when you take on something big, whether it be your career as a hockey player, and you put your goal out there and you want that to happen, and you talk it and you say it and you live it, you breathe it before it even happens, like telling a coach, I'm coming down here, I'm going to win, let's go. It attracts the right people, and so throughout my life, it's attracted the right people, attracted my wife, it attracted my trainers that have helped me, it's attracted certain friends, what I mean? We're talking right now, right? Yep. It's attracted yourself.
I love it.
And with my business as well, it's been the same. So, saying you're going to do something big and open up a building and do all this and do all this, the next thing you know, I have the skate shop guy that basically ran a skate shop for 20 years call me out of the blue and say, hey, I'd like to run your skate shop. And I'm like, let's go, because I'm opening up this building and we're going to put a skate shop here. So he left where he was, he came to where I was. And so now he's been operating and running the skate shop there for the last 6 years. And so I think that when you take on something big with conviction, that it attracts the people. So I don't think, I think it's really important to focus on how big you want your goals to be. And everything's going to line up if you keep that as your focus on how good you want it to be and how big you want that to be. And the bigger it is, people hear about it. They want a part of this, and you attract the right people. And I think that's something that I never really fully grasped during the process, but looking back, it's amazing the right people that it's attracted. to help it out.
I love it.
Yeah.
And we are doing a seminar there on July 7th.
That's right. Yeah. So we're really excited to have you. I've been following you, everything that you say, and driving to games with my son, or if I'm at the fire hall and I'm looking through your Instagram and that sort of thing, and I'll pull up things that you're saying. I'm like, man, that is right on. Just like, don't watch hockey like a fan, watch it like an athlete, want the breakaway, visualize that save, and all those things that I find myself doing as a goaltender. You're saying it with, you're articulating it, and you're kind of packaging things that that took me 10 years to kind of think about as a goaltender myself. And thinking to myself, if I had some of those, key things that you say, things that trigger your brain to be confident when I was a lot younger, I think I could have shaved off a goal a week, earlier. It took me a long time to get it, but you have a way of articulating things and getting guys fired up. And, I'll send the clip to my son, like, just, every time I see that clip, just go, boom, it's going to Luke, boom, it's going to Luke.
Love it.
I'm trying to stuff his brain full of everything that you're saying. And, it speaks to him, and I know he uses it. And it's part of my, drive to the game with him, and staying positive and talking about, get that energy on face-offs and that sort of thing. So I actually reached out to you, and I saw that you were doing something you advertised something that you're doing in Oakville. And I'm like, oh, I got to DM Pete. I got to DM this guy and say, can you come and do, tell me what you're doing? Are you going from goalie school to goalie school type of thing? But no, this is good. We work with about over 200 goalies in this area. And this just fits right in with an element that we don't really work on unless they get time to talk with a coach. You know what I mean? But
yeah, well, that's awesome. And I remember when you reached out and we chatted. I think we chatted for about 2 hours. The first
exactly.
First phone call.
Almost as long as this podcast. This was supposed to be 30 minutes.
Yeah, I know. Anyways, yeah. So July 7th, we're doing a half-day seminar, 4-hour seminar, 3 hours, and then an hour on the ice. We're going to put it all together on the ice, and it's at the hockey club. So it's the hockeyclub.ca is where you'll find Tom. You'll see that there. And Tom, I'm looking forward to meeting you in person that day. We're going to have an awesome day. We're going to have a lot of fun together and help a lot of goaltenders. And this has been a powerful podcast for goaltenders, for anyone listening. There's lots of life lessons and stuff, and you got a great story, and this is awesome. That needs to be a book. You need to put that into a book.
Yeah. I don't know how it would sell. I could put it into a book, but you never know, right? It's always like, did you ever see that movie with Kurt Warner? I think it was called American Underdog.
I just saw that, American Hero.
Yeah, American Underdog or something like that.
American Underdog. Yeah, somewhat similar. It's a lot of similar characteristics.
Except for the fact that he was MVP of the NFL, right? So I laugh, and the guys in the fire hall will say the same thing. They're like, "Oh, you got to put this all in a book." I'm like, what is it? UHL Underdog or something like that.
No, come on. We played in the KHL. KHL is a phenomenal league, right? You were signed with an NHL team and stuff. And
I appreciate it.
You think about it. You go back to that Chicago, right? Because was it Scott Darling? Did he back up Crawford that year?
I don't know who was with him, but I knew they had Habby Boulin that was up there, and Brian Boucher made the team at a training camp. He was near the end of his career. And they had Sebastian Caron, who was coming off injury. So they had 3 guys signed, and Crawford in the minors. So they wanted me to start with Crawford. And it looked like there was a chance that I'm going to be back in the East Coast League. One of these, as soon as Caron gets healthy, just kind of the way the landscape looked. So that was one of the reasons why I thought it would be smarter for me to just take the leap and go to Europe.
Well, you were definitely good enough to play in the National Hockey League, right? Yeah, you had a great career, like a great career.
No, I really appreciate it. Thank you. I'm proud of it. Things could have gone a lot worse, and things could have been different timing for the better in certain situations. But I have no regrets. You can only deal with the situations that you have in front of you. And there's been so many times in my career, just like when my dad told me, don't go work at discount car rental as a 19-year-old, and basically said, you should go play junior. I remember having it out with him in the kitchen. And he was like, you got to play, man. You got to play. And I'm like, fine. 1 year. I'll play 1 year.
Good for him.
And so there's been so many good things and timing has been really good at times, and timing has been really bad at times throughout my career. But I have no regrets, and gave it everything, and still grinding.
Awesome. And I'd say the theme for this podcast is bet on yourself. Burn the ships, bet on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Great job, Tom. Pete Fry, the goalie mindset guy. I'm so excited to have Tom on today. This was phenomenal. If you're just listening now, make sure to go back to the start, listen to the whole thing. What a great story of a great goalie career. Tom, you are powerful. I'm looking forward to seeing you July 7th at our seminar at your place.
Appreciate you having me. Thanks, Pete.
You got it.